Hello, I'm William Smith with the Carmel Luxury Group at Global Banker Realty in Carmel and new offices in Monterey. Chad, we've got a brand new office downtown Monterey in our regional Global Banker offices. I have with me our guest for this podcast, Chad Hawker from Synergy One Lending. He is our Carmel Luxury Group team lender, and we are excited to have you on. And once again, you are number one in the nation for Synergy One Lending. Congratulations.
Thanks, William. It's always fun to have these chats together.
Good. Well, I've got some notes here because you know what? There's a lot of questions that are coming my way and everybody on our team. And you need to get some clarity to us so that we can bring clarity to the marketplace. And I'm speaking about rates. Where are rates going? What do you see happening to them? And then how is it affecting our local housing market? If you can help me answer those questions, I think that it'd be helping a lot of our clients.
Let's do that. Well, to understand where rates are and where they're headed, I think it's important to understand the connection between inflation and mortgage rates. History has proven, excuse me, one thing true is that the fundamentals of rates and inflation are tied together. And inflation has been dropping aggressively. We have all different forms and measures of inflation. There's PPI, CPI, CPE, and all of them are coming down. Some are coming down faster than others. PPI, which is Producer Price Index, which is really the measure of inflation for manufacturers, is unbelievably down. So at the peak, which was last September, October, it was at 12%. This month, it's at 1%.
So when I went to
1%, right?
So when I went to Home Depot to buy a 2x4 8 feet long, and it cost 3 times what it cost before, and now it's back down closer to what it used to cost. That did affect the PPI because that would have been one of the things that were
absolutely, yeah.
that was
manufacturers.
That was the supply
chains.
Yeah, that was a supply chain issue.
Yeah.
But now that the supply chain is starting to subside, that means that the PPI is lowering and manufacturers are able to sell me product cheaper.
Exactly. Okay. So we've got all these different forms of inflation all moving down. Some of them are moving a little slower than others. The CPE, core CPE, which is let's talk a little bit about the Fed. The Fed has shifted their focus on different forms of inflation. If they would have stayed with the core CPI or headline CPI, that they want it to be at 2%. The headline CPI is already at around 3%. But the now core CPE is moving slower because it removes things like energy costs, food costs, which strangely enough, that affects us, right? But they feel like that should be removed and stripped out of the number, is moving much slower. It was at 5.3. Remember, this was at 8. So now it's at 5.3. Now it's at 4.8 as of this month. But when they have this unrealistic target of 2%, it's causing them to remain very strong against, they want it down faster, but that's just not how this form of inflation works. And many economists feel that they are unrealistic to think that that's going to get down to 2, when every other form of inflation is where it needs to be and close to where it needs to be and headed there. More like they're looking in the rearview mirror and not where things are headed. And it's forcing them to elevate the Fed funds rate. I share all of this because it's creating a huge delay with the movement of rates. Many anticipated with dropping inflation that rates would be much lower than they are currently. But when you also couple that with the fact that a lot of the economic data still is kind of mixed. You have a lot of data that shows that we are either in a recession or headed towards it. But then you have other data like the jobs data, which is fascinating. We don't have too much time to go into depth, but there are reasons why it's not or it's showing more optimistic than what it really is out there. And eventually, the truth will be revealed. And ironically, it's going to show that we are headed into a recession. Unemployment is going higher. This will then cause, now with inflation dropping and the economy headed towards a recession, improvement in the bond market, which then will cause rates to drop. But because it's still kind of mixed, because the Fed is still being very firm, because they're looking at a model of inflation that's much slower to move, all of this is elevating these interest rates higher than what they should, which right now, if you had to say what an average rate is, it's right around 7%, right?
So I'm going
So
to stop you there. You have talked a lot about economic factors, theories, and you're so well versed in economics. I really appreciate you bringing that to us. But the bottom line is, we've got some hurdles to jump, and there's some of it's going to be painful. And over the next while, we're going to see rates remain high. But do you agree with some of the people that are in my industry that are saying, okay, we're going to get through this next 10 months, and then we might see rates in the fives. You can always buy now, take the higher rate, and then go into a refinance next spring and get your lower rate for your 30-year fix. Is that something that makes sense in your world?
it makes, I'm gonna take it the next step and say it's important that people understand that dynamic and act on it. You know, it's driven by the fact that these higher rates have subdued demand, right? This subdued demand amidst a very low inventory creates more of an opportunity for a buyer to have a little bit more control of writing offers and negotiating those offers.
Right.
We do not see much of an improvement in inventory over the next year. That is going to continue to be a problem. What we do see is dropping rates. And as these rates drop, more buyers will flood the market. And now you have double the buyers and the same inventory. It's going to make it very hard for buyers to negotiate, get into deal. Furthermore, we've already seen this year alone, home values through Zillow, CoreLogic, they are now at about a 5% appreciation this year alone. Many anticipate it might go up to 10%. So if someone waits, now they are left with home prices even higher. They are left with more of a frenzy, with more buyers going after the same amount of properties. So by being able to act now, yes, realize you are paying a premium on the rate in the short term, but you're getting in at that price point, and then in a year from now when rates fall, or it might even be 6 months, you'll be able to refinance that rate down, yet you got in when it was a better time to get in. So I think it's really important for buyers to grasp onto this because they are making it harder on themselves for waiting. And I have this conversation probably daily with buyers, and there is a sense of epiphany, like, oh, okay, so waiting is only going to make it harder for me.
Well, it's interesting that in different markets right now, I have behind me 93923, the stats from the marketplace. And prices basically are selling for about 96.5% for the properties. And what we had 9 properties that sold, and that translates with the 42 properties in that zip code, 93923 is Carmel, unincorporated Carmel. It's about a 4.6 month supply of inventory. Still a short supply, still a seller's market, but it's starting to hit that 6 month mark, which is a balanced market. But Pacific Grove, we just had 104% was the sales price to list price, and we have about a month and a half's worth of inventory. And then Carmel Valley, we had 2 sales, and that translated to about 9 months worth of inventory. So the market in different pockets are really tight. Carmel by the Sea, very tight inventory. Pacifico, very tight. Seaside Marina is very much a seller's market. So it's crazy that we think with these high rates that you think everything would slow down, but that hasn't happened. Anyway, with that, I would say that we do have lots of people saying that next spring, 3 quarters from now, we should have a very different complexion, because some of these things will make a definition of whether we actually are in a recession, what unemployment really is. And that does work in favor of housing, except for obviously 2 out of the last 6 recessions, housing did have a decline. But in 4 of the last 6 recessions, housing had a significant increase, between 3.5% and 6% appreciation those years. I think we're seeing that now. There's a lot of pent-up demand, and when interest rates drop, if they hit in the 5s, I think we're going to see a lot of people clamoring to get those loans. Whereas when it hit the 5s a few months ago, people were saying, well, wait a minute, that's pretty high. Or I should say a year ago, when we first saw 5.5%. We had been at 3.5%, now 5.5%. But when we go back from 7.5% down to 5 or 5.5%, that's going to be a whirlwind, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I can't tell you exactly where the studies were done, but there was a study done that did a poll of even sellers, that if rates went into the 4s to the high, the 5s to the high 4s, would they then entertain selling and getting rid of their very low interest rate in order to move up, right? Because a lot of people just aren't selling because they have a rate that is in the 2s or 3s, and they don't want to move and have to deal with a rate in the 6s and 7s, right?
Well, I'm a perfect example of that. You did a great job of getting us a great rate when we refinanced with you. But if I were to take that low rate and get a current rate as a seller, I would say, I'm just not ready to make that change.
A hard jump.
And I would probably be looking at a different way. And of course, I would probably be downsizing. Now, downsizing allows you to buy something with your equity. But when you're moving up and you have to use your equity for a down payment, and all of a sudden you're saying, well, I'm going to have to increase my payment significantly to get the same size house, or get a smaller house for the same payment at a higher interest rate. So you have sellers that are saying, I don't want to sell yet. Wait till the rates come down. And so we're seeing that a lot. And that's one thing, brokerage end of this market, we're seeing those sellers are waiting until interest rates come down so they can make their move.
Exactly, William. Yep, that's the dynamic.
All right. You have a great team, and that is Team Hawk at Synergy One Lending in Carmel, California, Carmel by the Sea. You're right there on Dolores, so it's easy to find.
Yeah, that's in Dolores.
We'll make sure that we include your contact information in the information that we put out with this blog. And thank you, everybody, for joining us on our monthly blog with Chad Hawker. We get a lot of information every time that we talk to you. So, Chad, thank you very much. And I will say goodbye from William Smith at the Carmel Luxury Group at Coldwell Banker Realty in Carmel. And come see our new Monterey office. It's there at 456 Washington in Monterey. A beautiful new facility. That's our corporate headquarters regionally. And we'll be happy to make sure that people in any community, whether it's Pacific Grove, Carmel, now Monterey, or Pebble Beach, we have an office to serve you. Thank you very much. And Chad, I'll talk to you next month.
Thank you, William. Thank you. I love these visits.